So it goes without saying that the Nintendo Switch has a huge catalog with a variety of games. I'm talking your action, your adventure games, your puzzle-like games, sometimes shooters, and of course, you gotta have to mention RPGs. I believe that the Switch has a really great amount and quantity of RPGs for us to play, and which is why I wanted to share with you guys a few Switch RPGs that you should definitely have in your collection. Hello everyone, my name is Fejiro and this is Cozy Veggie, and on this channel we cover a variety of things such as Let's Plays, JRPGs, and all things cozy gaming. Now for me, the Switch is my main console of choice, regardless of whether that game is going to be coming out on other platforms. I try to get it on my Switch just because I just truly love my Switch and the experience of playing games on my Switch. The portability factor is such a must-have for me. I'm more of a portable gamer first and foremost, and so having the Switch and the plethora of RPGs at my disposal is such a blessing. So today I wanted to share with you guys a lot of Switch games that I think you should have in your collection. Some of these games I have in my own collection, some of them I do have in my collection but I've yet to play but excited to play them nonetheless, or some that I've kind of stumbled upon that I think you guys should know about as well. So, with the first game that I think you should add to your series is actually part of a franchise, which is probably one of Nintendo's main franchises, and that is none other than Zelda. I have to mention the top must-haves, which is Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Now, Breath of the Wild was part of the launch title that came alongside when the Switch was released back in 2017 and has amassed a huge following and has garnered rave reviews. I actually am currently going through my first playthrough of Breath of the Wild, and I know I'm kind of behind, I'm kind of late to it. While everyone else is playing Tears of the Kingdom, my ass is still playing Breath of the Wild. But for real reasons, the copy that I'm playing, I actually gifted that for my brother for Christmas back in 2020 when we both got Switches at the time, and I knew that was a game that he really wanted to play. And so he had that copy for like a year, and he played that game for a whole year, and so I finally decided to play Breath of the Wild this year. I wanted to play before Tears of the Kingdom came out. That clearly didn't happen, but I'm honestly glad. I really want to take my time with Breath of the Wild because it's such a stunning game and has really honestly set the bar for what an open world RPG should look like. The world is absolutely stunning. The characters that we get to meet alongside our journey to help defeat Calamity Ganon is honestly amazing. Unlocking the shrines and doing the puzzles within those shrines are honestly such a fun thing to do, and I feel like Nintendo really nailed the park with Breath of the Wild. And of course, the Tears of the Kingdom, I've heard nothing but great things about that game as well. I've heard that it's actually done what Breath of the Wild wanted to do, but like better. So I'm really excited to, once I finish Breath of the Wild, I'm so excited to continue my journey of Hyrule in Tears of the Kingdom. I also want to mention some other Zelda games that are also onto the Switch, such as Link's Awakening and Skyward Sword. Those are actually ports / remakes / remasters that were on previous consoles. So Skyward Sword is actually a remaster of the Wii version of the game, as well as Link's Awakening being a remake of the Game Boy Advance game. I always get remaster and remake confused. So like make is usually like a complete, like pretty much making the game from the ground up, while remaster is just kind of like polishing up a little few things, maybe adding a little more quality of life to the game. Please correct me if I'm wrong with those terminology, but I think that's kind of the gist of those games. But again, I've heard really great things about both of those ports that were added to the Switch, and I'm excited to play those and actually have them in my collection. I do have Link's Awakening, but I do not have Skyward Sword. I've been kind of waiting for that game to like go down in price, so hopefully within the near future it's at a more reasonable price and I'll definitely snag it up. The next franchise that I definitely have to mention is one of my faves, and that is none other than Fire Emblem. Now Fire Emblem, surprisingly, was actually the first RPG I've ever played, and my first ever strategy RPG that I've ever played. Back in 2020 when I first got my Switch, Fire Emblem Three Houses was the first game that I got, one of the first games that I got for my Switch, and I knew that JRPGs and RPGs were a genre that I really liked and I definitely wanted to dabble more into, and I've heard nothing but praises for Fire Emblem Three Houses, and that game has definitely lived up to hype and expectations. I thoroughly enjoyed my experience and my time playing that game and exploring the world of Foldland and all the lore and the characters that come alongside with that game, and really introduced me to a genre such a strategy RPG that I never heard of and actually am very fond of playing. It's a very, very in-depth game with a lot of content. It does have technically 3 main routes in the game, but I played through all 3. plus the DLC and the extra secret route. So I played that game a total of 5 times. I've literally played every ins and out of that game. I don't need to touch that game ever again, but I still have a fond memory of it and I love it nonetheless. Next we of course have Fire Emblem Engage, which actually was one of my highly anticipated releases of this year, and I did play it and I didn't like it. I'm sorry, I know you're probably booing me right now, but like I just didn't care for it. I loved the gameplay, don't get me wrong. The gameplay and the mechanics of this game was top tier and so much fun, and was definitely a challenge for me, not for sure. But those characters and the story, it was bad. It was so bad. And a lot of people are saying, well, like Fire Emblem was never known for its good storytelling or like what, like, and all that jazz. But like, they really didn't really care for that story or really took the time to make a good story or characters in that game at all. Like, they didn't do anything for it. So I'm definitely in the camp that preferred Three Houses over Engage in terms of like story and characters. Like, I feel like with Three Houses, I got to grow with the characters, learn about them, and really see where the story goes as I go alongside those characters. Engage, I did not care and give about these characters, and when I finish that game, I don't really plan to pick it up ever again. I just don't see the need. I do hope that when when Intelligent Systems creates a new Fire Emblem game, I do hope that they get a happy marriage with the good gameplay of Engage and the good story of Three Houses and merge that together. And when we do, I think we'll be on to something. The next franchise and series of games that I'll be talking about is none other than Pokemon, the tried and true and the pretty much the OG of turn-based RPGs. Surprisingly, I've never played a Pokemon game in my entire life, and there's a good reason for it. Well, whether it's good reason or not, it's a reason. My parents were very, very religious and thought that Pokemon were demonic creatures. Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy. I remember my mom heard this story of one kid who fell asleep with like Pokemon cards in his bed and then woke up dead the next morning. Tell me where she heard this rumor. I would love to know, because where on earth would you hear that? It was on, I don't even think it was on news. Granted, I was really young at the time, but still, who heard that? I don't know. My mom heard that and latched on to it and decided, you know what? Let's not have Pokemon in the household. So I never played a Pokemon game. We never watched Pokemon. I never experienced anything. So I don't have much really nostalgia for the series, but I know it's a very well-loved series that many people grew up on, and I understand the cultural impact that it has on not just gaming but just in media in general. I do have a few in my collection because I want to, now as an adult, I want to be able to re-experience that and take back what was robbed from me in my childhood. So we have definitely a plethora of Pokemon games on the Switch. We have Pokemon Sword, Pokemon Shield, we also have Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, we have Scarlet and Violet, and of course Pokemon Legends of Arceus. Now I know that I've heard that Pokemon has kind of been stale for the past few entries, but I've noticed that like with Scarlet and Violet, which is very much infamous, has definitely had potential to be a great game, and with the expansion hopefully coming soon, it would make it more solidified as a great game for Pokemon. And I know that Pokemon Legend Arceus, or Arceus, however you say it, was definitely move in the right direction of what Pokemon could do in the future. So there's a plethora of Pokemon games at your disposal to play. And the last franchise that I have to mention that it holds dear to my heart, and honestly has created one of my favorite games in gaming altogether, and that is none other than the Xenoblade franchise and Xenoblade games. Now, I heard about Xenoblade through Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. That was the first one game that was introduced, and I did not know at the time that it was a remake of the its original Wii release back in 2012. But oh my god, I played that game, I think it was in 2021, and fell in love with it and was so excited to play the other games, such as 2 and of course 3. It came out last year, 3 being one of my favorite games of all time, like period. I love that game. I think Monolith Soft are truly a great developer. They know how to create really great expansive worlds, really great characters, and just good story. I truly love and my time whenever I play a Xenoblade game. There's never a time where I'm disappointed or upset or feel like, oh, they could have done this better. I just truly feel like they make 10 out of 10 games. And also, can we also talk about how Monolith Soft is literally carrying Nintendo right now? They have worked on almost every major project that Nintendo has put out in terms of like main Nintendo games. I'm talking Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Splatoon, of course Xenoblade, and they also helped work on Animal Crossing, which is wild. You would never have thought that. So can we get a round of applause to Monolith Soft for being that developer? You did that. You did that. And with that being said, I definitely want to mention a few great games that aren't necessarily Nintendo exclusives, but you can be found on other platforms. There might be some on this list that might be Nintendo exclusives, but there's just a mix and match of them. Definitely got to mention Octopath Traveler and the Octopath type games. I'm talking about, again, Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, and of course Triangle Strategy. Now I know Octopath Traveler series has been kind of like a callback to what older JRPGs used to be back in the day. Like I'm talking like the 90s and 2000s. And of course with this aesthetic of the HD 2D series, it has given a new like life to those older JRPGs. And honestly, I love the look and appeal of them, and they look like such fun games. I do have Octopath Traveler 1. I do plan to get Octopath Traveler 2 at some point. Just want to wait for those prices to drop a little bit. But I do have Triangle Strategy, and I loved what I played so far of that game. I've only done one route of that game, but my god, the story and the combat of the strategy element to that game is absolutely chef's kiss, and I can't wait to go back into it to explore the other routes in that game because it was so stunning. And with Octopath Traveler that came out this past year, I've heard nothing but rave things about it and saying that's probably one of the best JRPGs in modern time, which is some pretty high praise. So I'm really excited to have those games as well. And alongside with the Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy, we also got to mention Live Alive or Live Alive. Is it Live Alive? Live Alive, Live Alive. I don't know. Please let me know and correct me. I would love to be corrected. But this was actually a remake with the HD 2D aesthetic and look from Team Asano. This was a game that was only released in Japan back, I believe, in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, and it was finally being able to be ported and remade for the Western audience, which is really great. And again, also another game that I've heard really great things that incorporates different elements of old and modern JRPGs, with also having an interwoven stories between multiple characters in different eras. So I'm really, really excited to see what that game has to offer, and I definitely need to add that to my collection, and I think you should add that to your collection as well. Another game that I feel like not many people really talk about is Astral Chain. This is a game that was developed by Platinum Games that was released, I believe, in 2019, and it looks really, really cool. The cyberpunk aesthetic looks absolutely amazing, and with the combat being developed by Platinum Games, how could you do wrong with that game? I've heard the story isn't that great and a little lackluster, but I'm really excited about it nonetheless. I do have it in my collection. Again, it just is a matter of when I play it because my backlog is massive and huge, and I just don't have all the time in the world to play all the games that I want to, but it's definitely one of my on my priority list. We now have a more recent port, and that is the Persona franchise, and that's Persona 3 Portable, Persona 4 Golden, and Persona 5 Royal. It's funny how they're all like the expansive versions of the game. I thoroughly love Persona series. I was introduced to Persona through Persona 5 like many people. I was really excited to when it was announced that it would be ported in Persona 5, and it's one of my favorite games I've ever played. I finished that game at the top of this year, and it's just amazing what they do with the UI. Can we just talk about the UI of Persona 5? Absolutely stunning. But UI aside, the characters are absolutely amazing. Being able to fight justice in a really cool, sneaky way, being phantom thieves, I think is really cool and fun. And I love the characters involved in the game. And honestly, the villains in the game are actually really cool too. The story of Persona games Can Never Do Wrong has always a darker, more mature element to it that I feel like people who enjoy a more darker theme in their games should definitely play the Persona franchise. Now the next list of games that I'll be mentioning are part of the Trail series. Now if you don't know, I'm currently going through the Trail series. I'm trying to play every single game in the Trail series because I heard really great things about it and I wanted to be invested into it. I'm currently going through my Let's Play of Trails in the Sky and absolutely loving it. And there's actually a few entries in this series that are on the Switch. So the ones that are on the Switch are Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4. We have Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure, and we are actually going to get Trails into Reverie in July. So we have quite a few Trails series. What's funny about this franchise is that they have the multi-platform one, so their games are all over the place. You can get them on PlayStation, I think Steam. I'm not sure if they're on Xbox. I don't believe so, but they're definitely on PS, PlayStation, Switch, and Steam, and also on older platforms such as like the PS Vita, which I have some games on, but that's not what we're talking about. But yeah, Trails in the Sky, and the Trails series is definitely a really, really cool franchise in the JRPG market. I think what's really cool about the Trails series is it has a really huge, like a very huge story that tells, that expands over a plethora of games. I believe as of right now, there's I think 10. With the Trails into Reverie coming, I believe it's 10. And I know that Japan is like 2 games ahead of the rest of the world. But to know that they have a story that's interconnected between all different arcs is absolutely exciting. And I do think that the payoff is really good if you really take the time to stick it through it and watch it to the end. Or watch it or play it to the end. I'm going to be taking part of that journey and I'm excited for it nonetheless. And we're going to end things on a good note, on a cozy note, with a few cozy games that I feel like fit that kind of genre. So the first franchises and list of games I'm going to mention are from the Atelier franchise. Now, the Atelier games is definitely a cute, wholesome game where you just pretty much play as an alchemist, creating potions along with her friends and to learn more about her world and to test her knowledge to become true alchemists. And this spans a variety of different games. I think with the Switch, we have a variety of them. We have some old classics like the Atelier Sophie, of course, the Atelier Rise, the trilogy. And we're going to actually get not recently, but coming soon, we will be getting the Atelier remake, which is one of the first ever Atelier games that is finally going to be come out for the West for everyone else to play. I'm honestly really excited for that franchise, that game that's coming out. I currently played a little bit of Atelier Rise, which I think is pretty much a lot of people's entry point to the Atelier franchise. It's such a very slow-paced RPG, and not too high stakes, although again, making the alchemy part of it's really fun. The adventures of it all, it's just a really cute, kind of like almost kind of coming of age, because they are relatively young, and being able to be a part of that journey with them is honestly such a fun blast and a good, nice slow pace compared to the pretty intensive RPGs and RPGs I mentioned before. Next, we definitely got to mention the Rune Factory series. Now with the Switch, we have Rune Factory 4 Special and Rune Factory 5. If you love yourself a good farming sim / RPG, these are definitely going to be up your alley. Rune Factory has been with Nintendo for a really long time, and with these entries, Rune Factory 4 Special, which is a remaster of the 3DS game, and Rune Factory 5 being its own new entry. That's actually the first home console entry in a while, I believe since the Wii. I'm sure they have a Wii U one. Please let me know. But Rune Factory 4 and Rune Factory 5 are definitely fun games that are also on other platforms. I know that the frame rates and the graphic fidelity for the Switch are not the best, especially with Rune Factory 5. I believe it's on Steam that you can play it. I don't know how much better that is on that console, but definitely on there for you to play as well. But Rune Factory 4 and 5 are definitely fun games to just unwind to, get to know your townspeople, maybe romance and marry and have children. Just live a fun life with those ones. And alongside Rune Factory, I definitely got to mention the Story of Seasons. We have Story of Seasons, Mineral Town, and Olive Town. But those games as well. Those came out pretty recently. And of course, we actually are getting Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life, which is coming out at the end of this month in June, which I'm really excited to have. Oh, I totally forgot. We're also getting Rune Factory 3 Special, which is coming out at the end around September of this year. Which again, kind of similar vein. I believe they're in the same kind of vein of, again, farming sim, get to know your townspeople, grow your farm, as well as romance some characters and have a happy family and life. So if you're into those kind of games, I definitely recommend to have it in your collection. And with that, that's pretty much all of the RPGs that I can think of as of right now. And like I mentioned before, there's a plethora of games on the Switch, and I could go on for days talking about all the RPGs that are on the Switch available to play for everyone. But I just wanted to start off with these few that I definitely think that should add some more color and variety to your collection as of right now. Please definitely comment down below which is your favorite RPG to play onto the Switch, or what would you recommend people to get if they're new to the Switch or love RPGs. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you watched, do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!